All right, so let's talk about Reconstruction, man. All right, so in Reconstruction, the most important thing we got to see is how Reconstruction pertains to how the system is and how the economy is now and the way it is. So, in order to do that, let's start unpacking things that they was doing in the South of uh, Southern states. So, in the Southern states, you had the black codes going on right after the Civil War, and these white heads got up in the office right after the Civil War and just set up these laws that they um, were passing to basically put vacancy law. So they put the name of what a slave is or a runaway slave under the name vacancy. And with these vacancy laws, basically, if you weren't working on a white plantation on a leasing contract, you were a vagrant and you were meant for immediate arrest. And when they arrested you, they made you work on the roads and in the system. But out of that, or they put you in one of these 3 to 6 week contracts, and with these 3 to 6 months, and these 6 to 3 month contracts were said to be put in place as you were a temp, basically, and when you were a temporary contract worker, that meant that you worked on a plantation and you were of no value at that point. So that meant that the contractor was said to be able to do whatever he wanted with you, which means he could whip you, brutalize you, and do all these different types of things to no extent of the government. So you had two options. It was either work on the plantation, or if you didn't work, you was considered a vagrant. And then once you get considered a vagrant, this means that now they're gonna put you on another a 3 to 6 month contract lease where you're of no value, which means you can get beat and whipped and get every amount of blood, sweat, and tears dripped out of you to the point you're most likely to die of environmental and physical abuse. In the South, they had all these words and all these terms that they would put in their laws to classify you to specifically point out a slave. Like it said that anybody out on the street that was doing fortune telling, or that was into gambling, or that was in selling without a lease from the government was considered a vagrant and said to be put for immediate arrest. Not only that, you also had the white folks that was there that were allowed by said government to arrest any black man or quote unquote vagrant that they see, not even a police officer, just a white man. So they could arrest you and then accuse you of doing something, and if you're found guilty, which is most likely the case, you were put in jail and then made to work on the roads, and then they found a leasing or a contract for you that you were said to be working on. So, as you can see in the South, you have many different forms of laws and regulations passed that is literally slavery. The South lost the war. They decided that instead of creating a system, they wasn't about to give black people no freedom. So what they did immediately was instead they was like, okay, we just gonna put slavery into a system, and that's what they did. They had every form in the book and every possible way that you can think of to classify somebody as or classify people as slaves without mentioning the actual word slave. The laws on the white contracts, it said that if you were disobedient to the contract worker, it was said that the the contract worker could either fire you in the contracting lease, or they could put you in court and settle a dispute against you on their terms. It was also said that if you weren't working, if you were caught not working, if you ran away from the plantation, if you try to invite other people over to the plantation, or if you did any of these different types of things, you were said to have been breaking the contract lease, and you would get in trouble for that. So when you can really see this, you can see that it's still a form of slavery, and that slaves, or we didn't have no form of freedom or equality or anything going on in the South. It was literally from slavery to just master and servant. The thing they was passing in the South was from, if you're not working, to someone who's not working, someone who's lazy, as they would call it, and it's someone who's running away from work and running away from a plantation or running away from the system they got set up is said to be a criminal. So the South was crazy, racist, treacherous, envious, spiteful that they lost the war, spiteful that they had to give up physical slavery. So then they created this black code system immediately right after. In the North, you had people up there furious. Frederick Douglass and fugitive slaves, Harriet Tubman, and we was furious up there in the North when the South started implementing these black codes. But we still had revolutions and revolts going on, and even to that day about those black codes. But in the North, we had a big impact on the laws that they were passing and the legislations that they were writing in terms of how the system was going to go about. When we look at equality for all and everyone's equal under the court of law and all these different things were things that they had implemented because of the influence that we had in the North, and they wanted our support, because they knew if they didn't have our support in creating these laws and the legislation that they were passing, the system wouldn't run. So the whole idea was to keep us in the system, because what they didn't want was colonization. That's what Abe Lincoln wanted. But what they didn't want was us to be separate from the system, because the system wouldn't run right if we weren't working in the system. So they would use a lot of propaganda and a lot of good sounding supplementary things that they were saying on paper, and the Constitution wrote and it read miraculously. It read perfectly. So equality for all, court, everyone equal under the court of law, and everyone has the right to vote. We have to give the free Negroes education in order for them to be competent when they vote, and this type of stuff. And military support or in the South started to have to get implemented in order to really get these laws enforced. They had to continue implementing these laws by force, because they couldn't do it civilly as like they wanted to. And it turned out kind of like the Civil War did in terms of going to the South and trying to restore the South underneath its system, and then having to arm us and take us into their system in order to make it work. They used the same tactics as in during the Civil War as they did to make Reconstruction work. And you can thank Charles Sumner for that, because he was the one that actually said that he barked at Abe Lincoln, because Lincoln was trying to colonize us and put us back in Africa and in Liberia, and Charles Sumner was the one that actually went to him and said that you better not take all this free working hands and laboring hands out this country. You got to be out your God thinking mind. So this is why we're still here, and this is why we conform to this system in the North, and why we still are living the way we are today. It's because we didn't have a choice in terms of elevating ourselves from enslavement. It was either the system or this system right here. So Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman and many other civil rights, and many other leaders during that time put their minds and heads into this system, and was making an influence to create a system that was that we could eventually take advantage of in order to thrive. So we can thank them for this. However, this is not how the Constitution ended up happening. How it ended up happening was Charles Sumner and the other Northerners, after Lincoln was assassinated, they had put the Constitution and said that every man is equal under the court of law, and every man is has the right to that equality, and beyond this stage, it's up for debate, or beyond this stage is up for discussion. So basically, why they did that was because they couldn't conform to they couldn't get the South to conform to them completely. So they said beyond this, every man that steps foot, man, woman, child, or whatever that steps foot under the court of law is pronounced to the same rights as anybody else. Is above all else the thing that we stand for and we have to go by. But everything else after this is what they said was up for discussion. So this happened because we didn't have any type of leaders that were making an influence in that Constitution anymore, because Abe Lincoln had much respect for Frederick Douglass, and after the assassination of Abe Lincoln, Frederick Douglass kind of lost a little bit of edge, a little bit of a foot in the door in terms of influence. We conformed into this free enterprise system that stood for, in propaganda, equality for all, and all these good sounding things, because we didn't have a choice. Just like in the Civil War, when we aligned with the Army soldiers, at that point, to us, we didn't have a choice. So that's what we did. So today, what we can be doing now, or what we should be doing now, is growing the free enterprise system in order to give ourselves equity and economic stability, because this is what Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman and many other fugitive leaders were actually in the process of doing. So what we need to do now is take advantage of the free enterprise system, and which would mean growing our businesses, creating our own businesses, owning our own land, and circulating our dollar within our community so we can help the next generation. This would mean that with the small businesses that we have, we need to combine our businesses, create more job capacity, and then create more job opportunities in order for us to be able to continue to circulate our dollar and grow our community, because the only way you can grow a community is if you have the job opportunities for people that look like you to be able to work and then circulate the dollars in the community. It's going to come from the ground up. So we need to take the people that we have at the top, or the intelligent people and the educated people, to create the small businesses and to do business with each other. And then when you do business with each other and combine the businesses, you create the job opportunities for the people at ground level. This is how we grow our community, and this is how we continue to keep that circulation of dollar flow. And within the circulation of dollar flow, this is how we give finance our health programs and educational programs and all these other types of youth programs that we had back in the 60s. We have a lot of work that we need to do within the small business side of things. And once we understand this and become educated on the system and the economy, then can we start to attack and implement strategies in order to give ourselves economic freedom from the ground level up. My thing is, Reconstruction was a time where black people sought education and sought knowledge of themselves and what they were doing before they were slaves and who they truly were. This is where you had a lot of great black men and women, and this is where they started putting back into the youth and developing the youth and telling the youth that these were going to be the greatest leaders of this nation, and speaking these words and believing these words like truthfully. They had ultimate faith that this next generation that was coming up was going to be the ones that was going to be that next generation. So I'm gonna conclude this video right here, though. I'll see y'all in the next video.